Hello and welcome back to Perspectives, bringing you our daily dose of news and views covering the topics we hope are relevant to you. Today, as the aftermath of the seismic news of Canada's actions against India yesterday begins to settle, we look at more shocking but predictable reaction from India. We also take a look at how the Five Eyes have responded to the news and how India's transnational repression is actually now beginning to backfire as mainstream Western news are inviting Sikhs into their channels and asking the question, just what is Khalistan? We'll also cover the shocking attack against Sikhs protesting against Gurdas Maan. Sikhs for Justice leader Gurdas Maan once again raises his courageous head above the parapet to take yet more well-aimed pot shots at India. And if that isn't enough, Sikhs are out in force as always, dishing out aid in the aftermath of Hurricane Milton. Well, joining me as always for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and good morning to our amazing viewers out there. I won't do a long kick in here because we got a long show ahead of us.
Indeed we do, and James and I together will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And of course, as always, we'll be taking a look at lots of your great comments at the end of the show, which have been filling up below the video, so thank you as always for those. Right, James, let's get things underway. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
Well, it might be a long show ahead of us, Angus. It goes quickly, though. Just kind of like Canada right now. They're looking at a long road ahead when it comes to dealing with the transnational repression and the foreign interference with India. Now, as a part of the Five Eyes, of course, we know that several agencies throughout the world have been participating in gathering information and bringing it to the Canadian investigation team as a partner in the Five Eyes, including the FBI. However, it is very interesting to note that even though they have brought information forward, and a lot of these nations are suffering the same fate as Canada when it comes to foreign interference, threats against citizens, violence on their sovereign soil, it seems that they are turning a blind eye to a lot of it, though. And that, of course, has a lot to do with trade. Now, of course, they don't want to upset the apple cart. Now, the U.S., of course, right now is in trade talks with India, and that's everywhere from trade to military and much more. And we know that there's a lot of money on the table here. However, they have taken a stance a bit different than Canada in dealing with it in a backroom level in terms of the threat against Mr. Panoon and other American Sikhs. Now, this is, of course, an option for them because India is actually cooperating with them on the surface. And when I say on the surface, it's because whether or not it's actually going to lead anywhere more than just window dressing on behalf of India to appease their trade partners or potential trade partners, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. We do know that there has been one arrest in India with relation to the commission that was set up by the Modi government in relation to the assassination attempt on Mr. Panoon. But again, is it going to be anything more than window dressing? And is this person actually one of interest, and or is he a scapegoat? And when we look at other nations that are members of the Five Eyes, of course, the United Kingdom right now is very quiet. Again, they, much like the U.S., has said that this is a very serious issue, and they had encouraged India to participate in the investigation process and to cooperate. However, India chose not to do that. And that's pretty much, as far as we're getting on international comments when it comes to our Five Eyes partners. And again, the United Kingdom is working on a free trade agreement with India, which could be a substantial boost to both economies, and especially the UK economy at this time, as well as employment rates and so much more. So is it a fact of them taking the money over the safety of citizens, or are they just dealing with it in a back level means, much like the US? We'll have to wait and see. And of course, we haven't heard much from our other Five Eyes partners either in terms of public statements. We do know that they are encouraging and supporting of Canada behind closed doors. But again, it's almost as though, as I said, they're just turning a blind eye to their Five Eyes, partner, and we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. This, again, of course, is such a major issue, and there's so much more information coming down the pipe. As we continue to evaluate it, we're going to continue to bring you information. And this is something that we've spoken about before, Angus, in terms of the trade, whether trade is going to trump human rights, whether it's going to make a difference in the world of politics, the world of geopolitical importance. And in closing on that, that is exactly the other point that some of the nations are making in more quieter ways and more indirect means. And that is the importance in the geopolitical arena of having India as a partner, having them on board when it comes to China and that region. They really are looking to utilize and maximize that partnership there with India. So there's a lot of balls in the air and everybody's juggling them. So again, it's still fairly fresh. So we'll have to see how it plays out, Angus.
Yeah, this is at the global strategic level. It's we talked a lot about this. I suspect that the governments here in the UK and the US will be absolutely spitting blood about Narendra Modi, because he's become an absolute pain in the proverbial, because most Western nations really want and need good relations with India for many reasons, both for trade and strategic purposes. And of course, Narendra Modi's obsessive agenda, and by that, of course, I refer to the Brahmanic obsessive agenda to destroy the Sikh community, is causing all sorts of disproportionate problems globally. Because certainly from the UK perspective, the UK would like very good relations with India. Yeah. And that's primarily driven by trade. Of course, we have a very long historic relationship with India at establishment level. And we've talked a lot about the British establishment having this strange relationship with the Indian establishment to the detriment of the Sikh community. But of course, Britain, as you rightly said, does need a trade deal. Post-Brexit, we've been working extraordinarily hard to have a very lucrative trade deal with India, and vice versa. It would be very mutually beneficial, a very powerful trade deal. And of course, here in the UK, we have the intelligence services fully aware of transnational repression, fully aware of what the Indian agents have been up to, what RAW and the NIA have been up to here in the UK.
That's right.
And of course, they are coming up against the British establishment, who likewise are trying to brush this under the carpet because it is an inconvenient and an uncomfortable truth of what's going on. The British establishment are more interested in, as you rightly say, trumping human rights by trade deals. That's certainly the priority here in the UK. Now, in the US, likewise, there is the same similar sort of battle going on. Where the US administration at governmental level, at presidential level, they find Narendra Modi probably a bit of a damn nuisance because, again, they want India as an ally. They need India as an ally to buttress against China. Of course, the big concern, all the eyes, of course, are on China, and there's a lot of worries about where China's going over the next 10, 20 plus years. So they need India on side. So from purely geopolitical reasons, they want to be friends with India. They need India to fall in alignment with the Five Eyes nations. So that's what's going on in the US administration's eyes. But likewise, at a lower level, at Congress level and the Senate level, you've got a lot of people all combining together in these pressure groups, these lobby groups, again pushed from grassroots level. The Sikh communities are pushing from grassroots levels up towards the presidential level to say, you've got to do something about this. You stand allegedly for human rights. Unfortunately, you've got to prioritise human rights over other issues. And of course, the other issues here in the US is its geopolitical reasons, rather less so than dollars. I mean, yes, it would be very nice for trade deals for the US to have trade deals with India, but in reality, the overriding priority for the US at the moment is the geopolitical need for India as an ally against China. So both the UK government and the US government at the senior level have got other reasons that are more important than the human rights. Yet they are now under pressure from beneath, knowing that this is going on. And Justin Trudeau's government will be pressuring, I have no doubt, and I know that they are pressuring the UK and the US governments to say, look, you've got to come out and support us on this. But of course, these governments have their own respective other agenda at play. Australia, likewise, and New Zealand. I'm probably less. My knowledge of Australian and New Zealand politics is less. But I do know that Australia, again, likewise, does need, particularly exactly where it sits geographically. The Asian region is extremely important to Australia and New Zealand. That's where a lot of its trade comes from, and a lot of its trade relations are built within Southeast Asia and Southern Asia. So likewise, they would prefer to have India as an ally rather than a nuisance. And unfortunately, Narendra Modi once again is proving himself, and the Brahmins are proving themselves to be a complete nuisance, because they are upsetting the global apple cart with this obsessive agenda against the Khalistan movement. And again, it always comes back down to this simple, easy solution for India. Cast aside northwest India. Let that small slice of northwest India go. Let Khalistan happen. Let the Sikhs have their sovereign land. It's only a small part of northwest India. And overnight, you solve all these problems. Overnight, you'll get the US, the UK, Canada, you'll get Australia and New Zealand on side. They will become better friends and allies with you. You don't need to go onto their soil and kill their citizens, because they walk away. The Sikh community walk away. They become friends to India. It's a small price to pay to sort out and settle down global geopolitics. India then becomes a friend of the West, a better friend of the West. Trade deals will start falling into place. That is the path of least resistance. Narendra Modi and the Brahmins, the RSS, the BJP just need to take another look at this whole option and actually realise it is a path of least resistance. Just give the Sikhs their own homeland, just a small slice of northwest India, and all these problems go away. It's a very easy solution, I suggest there, James.
Absolutely. And, is there a way to work it with an in-between, as a quasi-independent state, kind of like we have in Quebec and Canada, where they define a lot of their own laws, their culture, their regulations. They basically are a country within a country almost when it comes to Quebec. And they've had referendums in the past that, we didn't get upset about. We allowed them the freedom to have those referendums to see if they wanted to separate and actually be their own country. Again, it's just an interesting one that we got to watch, and hopefully plays out to the benefit of the Sikh community, as they've struggled for, centuries to really get to this point of importance. So let's hope that works. And we also want to keep in mind that the U.S. is only weeks away from an election. Do they really want to rattle any cages at this point in time, with just 6 weeks to go before an election and then a transition of power in January? So, they could be just holding off on any type of real public statements at that point as well, to see who comes into power and what happens in the next stages. But as we talk about the history and the importance of Sikhs around the world, Angus, of course, they are stepping up, as they always do. The United Sikhs are on the ground in North Carolina and Florida, working to help the countless victims of the hurricanes, both Helene and Milton. And here we can see that they are on the ground. As I said, they're working hard to help those in need. They're bringing food, they're cooking meals. They've been supplying generators for electricity in hard-hit areas. Personal items, things you don't even think about when you take for granted. You go to the bathroom, pick up your toothbrush, your toothpaste, you go to the cupboard, get diapers for the baby, whatever the case is. And they don't even have cupboards or counters to put this stuff on, let alone the things that they need. So again, it's just a devastating impact to so many lives throughout Florida, throughout North Carolina, but of course, the Sikh community steps up, as they always do. I've had the privilege of seeing them firsthand on site in Poland at the refugee camps or welcome centers as refugees were fleeing the war in Ukraine. Just an amazing, amazing group of people that I got to meet and help unload trucks and different things in between reporting. So I just love the organization. I love how the Sikhs step up. The Sikhs always are there, and we've seen them here in British Columbia and Canada when it comes to wildfires and flooding, but again, they are everywhere around the globe, just making the world a better place, and that is so important. So I just wanted to give a shout out and a quick update to people about how they can help in terms of the different programs and ways that they're working, again, in North Carolina, Florida, and surrounding areas. So again, there's different things that they're in need of. Again, just check their website. They keep it fairly updated in terms of what's needed, what's going on, as well as just sharing some amazing and inspiring stories of people who are so resilient and just moving forward to make their lives better, but also of the community in which they love and they live in. And once again, I just can't say enough about all of the volunteers and the people that have stepped up to make that happen, Angus. It is probably looking at tens of billions of dollars in terms of damage, and the whole thing's going to take probably at least a decade to bring back, if they bring it back at all. So it's just another inspiration. And if you out there as a viewer have the opportunity to help or have stories to share, we always love to hear from you. You can share them via the email. Angus will mention at the end of the show. If you've got videos, stories, and such, please feel free to share them with us. We love inspirational stories. And given all of the craziness in our geopolitical world, in the transnational repression, it's nice for us to bring a story once in a while that really is inspiring and just focuses on the good in the world. And of course, Sikhs are in the forefront of bringing good to the world. Angus?
Indeed, it's fabulous to always report these stories. Literally every major natural disaster that happens around the world, very quickly the Sikh aid organisations like Khalsa Aid and many others like them are straight there. They've got their teams ready to go. This selfless service, this saver as they call it, they're out there dishing out the aid, helping people in their most terrible times of need. And it's, again, it's just so embedded within the Sikh philosophy, and they are out there doing this wonderful service. Of course, it's very highly visible. It does wonders for the public relations and the visibility of the Sikh community. And even just as an example, I had somebody here doing some work for us here at our house, and I mentioned about Sikhs and doing this channel, and he said, "Oh, Sikhs, I know the Sikhs, I really like them." Again, it's all about this visibility. The community has been so out there publicly, doing really good, positive, selfless service out in the communities here in the UK, all around the world. And because of this high profile that they are maintaining, it is doing such a good thing for their community. And yeah, likewise, James, as you report here, Hurricane Milton, and of course all the other, I mean, there's flooding in Vietnam recently, they were out there in force. Again, every time there's a natural disaster, it's always the Sikhs out there, ready, rolling out the aid, high profile guys, and I take my hat off to these guys, well done to them.
Absolutely, Angus, and just inspiring the whole mission and the goal of just lifting people up and helping. It's awesome.
Indeed. Okay, let's move on, because a lot to get through today, and we're going to return back to the headlining story that's been thundering away over the last 48 hours, and of course the Canadian situation with India. Well, unsurprisingly, and I reported yesterday how India reacted with their sort of belligerent, stubborn, sort of childish, "Oh, it wasn't us, prove it," nothing. We've been up to nothing at all. Well, India's been back to their old tricks once again, because they're well known for every time that the finger of guilt or even the finger of suspicion points at India over any act or transnational repression act that it's been up to, it always comes up with deflection and diversion. It always throws its teddies out of the pram and comes up with other outrageous stories just to try and distract the media away from the truth. And yeah, the last 24 hours has seen an absolute classic example of this. So in Canada a while ago, the Rapid Response Mechanism, the RRM, was set up. This was an initiative led by Canada's Global Affairs Department. And it was set up to monitor and counter foreign interference, particularly in the digital and media landscape, so basically online and across mainstream media. And it was set up about 6 years ago as part of a G7 initiative. And the RRM seeks to safeguard democracy, essentially, across the West by tracking, analysing and identifying foreign interference attempts, especially during sensitive political moments, exactly like now. And its report, it released a report very recently discussing a lot of evidence that's been going on, of course, the ongoing inquiry going on in Canada. And particularly since Trudeau stood up in September last year and publicly named India as a potential country of interest over the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And since then, the RRM has been monitoring things very closely and monitoring disinformation and these waves of propaganda and deflective and distractive activity coming out of India. And lo and behold, over the last 24 hours, guess what? There's been the reports of a massive bomb hoax campaign against Air India and other airlines related to India. So in the last 24 to 48 hours, India has, according to the RRM, faced multiple alleged bomb threats targeting Air India flights. A scenario that fits eerily well within the broader strategy of this deflection and disinformation identified by the RRM. The pattern actually is very clear. When uncomfortable truths about India's activities, such as what happened over the last 24 hours, India's response is to create sensational distractions that shift global attention away from these revelations. So, unsurprisingly, this recent wave of bomb threats appears to be part of a coordinated deflection tactic. Yes, it's good old India up to its old tricks again. Orchestrated to dominate headlines and divert international media attention away from the diplomatic and criminal nexus that the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, have exposed. And it's not the first time that they've done this, creating security crises and generating fear. It's been a hallmark of India's media disinformation strategy, particularly when it comes to Sikhs and particularly Khalistanis. Now, the timing of these bomb threats do, of course, raise serious questions. They function as a convenient tool to shift the global narrative away from the findings of the RCMP, which of course have directly implicated Indian diplomats and Indian intelligence agencies. And of course pointing the finger of suspicion at the Indian government itself. They deflect attention from Canada's broader investigation into India's involvement in wider criminal activity, extortion, home invasions and basically transnational repression. And of course they stoke fear and suspicion towards the Khalistani community by perpetuating this ridiculous narrative that Sikh militants and pro-Khalistan people are activists, they are violent extremists and terrorists. It's maintaining this narrative that they're all violent extremists and terrorists. And India, of course, has a long history of using these fear-based narratives to malign Sikh activists, as highlighted in this report. And the same Indian news agencies and news outlets and media outlets reporting these things were the same ones mobilised to discredit the Canadian government and the Sikh diaspora following Trudeau's announcement last year. And they're now amplifying these same bomb threats. It's the same platforms like WION News, NDTV, ANI. It's all the same old India government mouthpieces again that first of all attacked Trudeau last year when he first came out with his accusations, have been over the last 24, 48 hours attacking Trudeau and the RCMP after his revelations. And now they're the same ones now spewing out this propaganda, these bomb hoaxes, and by implication trying to tie in what they're calling these Khalistani terrorists and extremists. Yeah. It is part of a broader cognitive, basically a psychological warfare strategy. Using the same media apparatus to continually flood the public sphere with these crisis narratives that conveniently obscure or neutralise critical reports, such as these findings from the RCMP. And by activating these influencers and these same media outlets again, India is ensuring that global attention is redirected from its illegal activities to these sensational security-driven stories. And the strategy mirrors the tactics employed by India during the farmers' protests. It's the same old tactics. It's labelling the Khalistani activists as terrorists, as extremists. And the bomb threats targeting the Air India flights fit into a well-established disinformation cycle that India has perfected over the years. And of course, the timing of these threats coming just after these revelations suggests a deliberate attempt to deflect, distract and malign the Sikh diaspora. By recycling the same media channels and influencers, India is ensuring that the narrative shifts from the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar to manufactured security concerns that generate fear and confusion. Now, they do, of course, not just use the Indian mainstream media outlets and their own influencers in the Hindutva IT cells online. They also try to use influential non-Indian voices, effectively disguising its interference, making it seem like it's a broader consensus. So they bring in these other news outlets, whether it's through financial incentives or whatever, and they're trying to broaden this narrative against the Sikh community. And of course, the more outlets, the more diverse outlets that report this nonsense, then the more that consensus seems to become a mainstream narrative. And a lot of this comes from a report by SITE, which is the Security Intelligence Threats Evaluation briefing provided by the Canadian Security Intelligence Services, CSIS. And the document evaluates the threats posed by foreign interference activities in Canada. And of course, James, these will be coming out in that phase 2 of the foreign interference inquiry. Right. Now, interestingly, just as a follow-up to this, and I mentioned in the introduction, one of the wonderful laws of unintended consequences, which one of my favourite laws that exists, Narendra Modi and this obsessive agenda to attack the Khalistani movement is having actually an unpredictable backlash. It's actually, what it's now doing is propelling this story into mainstream Western news. And we're now finding that the mainstream Western news are asking the question, what is this all about? Why on earth is India trying to murder these Khalistani people? Who are Khalistani people? What is Khalistan all about? Well, I'm delighted to report that now the mainstream media is inviting very high-profile Khalistani activists onto their programmes and asking these very same questions. And I'm going to play you just a very short excerpt from Sky News, one of our mainly watched channels. It's one of our primary news channels here in the UK and across in Australia as well. They interviewed Maninder Singh from the Sikh Federation, and they asked a lot of very interesting questions. It was an 8-minute interview. It's worth having a look at it online if you can find it. Maninder Singh just sets out beautifully, very articulately, the whole argument. And I'm just going to play you a quick excerpt, a 1-minute excerpt from this interview.
Not at all. Now, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was a friend, a colleague, a confidant of yours, someone you knew well. He was accused by the Indians of being part of a Khalistani separatist movement. He was a leader in this movement that wants a separate state. The Indians described that as a terror organisation, which is why he was deemed as a threat to that nation. Can you understand why there are critical of people within the diaspora who seem to want to change what's happening back home?
I think that's indicative of a kind of a fascist-type regime in and of itself, that anybody with any legitimate dissent, any criticism of a government, especially somebody who's been accused of genocide himself, Mr. Modi in Gujarat with the Muslims in 2002, that they would react in this way. The diplomacy that the Sikh community has shown, the mechanisms that we've chosen to run this movement for Khalistan, over the last several decades, they keep crying extremism, radicalism, and they've not been able to prove, even with a single shred of evidence, of where that actually exists, including within Canada itself. So I think their accusation that Mr. Nijjar was a Khalistani leader, it's not even an accusation, it's the truth. He was a Khalistani leader. I myself act as a Khalistani leader. Mr. Pannu acts as a Khalistani leader as well. So all of us that have these threats that are against us, we accept that we are separatists. We are moving for sovereignty and self-determination, which is enshrined from the UN and the ability for the Charter of Rights in Canada to have these freedoms of expression and speech. So if India doesn't value those, I think we should be talking about India's democracy, this veiled democracy that they're showing the world, where they quash legitimate dissent in the most violent ways with assassinations of people on foreign soil.
Boom, there you go. A slap in the face of the India media machine. There you go. That is mainstream British news channel. And Maninder Singh are very articulately and perfectly setting out the counter narrative. Here it is now. Modi's BJP and the RSS have worked extraordinarily hard to try and control the narrative. Well, look what's happening now. The narrative is being counterattacked here on mainstream news. Maninder Singh is setting out the Khalistan stall, watched by a huge audience. He's throwing this straight back at Modi. He's counteracting the narrative. He's setting out the very clear argument. Look, we're not extremists. We're not terrorists. And look what India are up to. Look who is actually the terrorist. And the audience, I can tell you now, they will listen to Maninder Singh setting out very articulately, very peacefully and very genuinely the Sikh narrative. And it sounds a lot more reasonable, doesn't it? So suddenly I feel that shift. I keep talking about the shift of momentum. Yes, the counter narrative is out there in mainstream media. James, I think this momentum is shifting against India. I think the public across the West now are actually now getting a different narrative. They're getting a different story. They're now waking up to, what is Khalistan? Well, now we're understanding. And I'll tell you, the next question in this interview, we didn't have time to show it, but Maninder sets out the case for Khalistan beautifully, sets it out in comparison to the story of Scottish independence here in the UK, about the Quebec referendum in Canada, James. And he said it's perfectly reasonable. India calls itself a democracy. So again, he makes a beautiful argument saying why India is no longer a democracy in comparison to the West. So, James, as I say, I think the narrative is shifting here in the West.
Absolutely, Angus. And I've actually met Maninder in person and spoken with him. I asked him some questions. He was, of course, at the courthouse with the Niger trial proceedings at one point. And I just found him to be an amazing representative of the Sikh community because he's very well spoken. He's very articulate. He's very well informed, but he also brings a very, very impactful calmness to him. So he's very calm, but in choosing the right words and how he responds, he carries a large impact. And I think that his leadership is going to be a very beneficial thing for the Sikh community. And yeah, as I said, if you get chances to watch his interviews, he's a very well-spoken man, and I really have a lot of respect for him that way.
Yeah, indeed. He's put across the argument in a very mature, considered, calm, peaceful way, and it's very, very persuasive, which is great to see. So again, this is why I think the narrative is shifting. Now I'm going to move on to my second story now, and I'm going to go from mature, considered, calm and peaceful to the firebrand that is Gurdas Singh Pannoon, who once again has stuck his head above the parapet in I would say a very typical fiery way. And full marks to Gurdas. I do love reporting on him because he certainly does not hold back, and it's no wonder the RSS really targeted him because he is such a powerful force of nature and certainly a powerful force for the Sikh community. He's one of his latest videos a few days ago. I did want to report on this a few days ago, but of course the agenda has shifted with the big news from Canada. Right. But he did come out with a video a few days ago. And the Times of India reported this. I'll just quickly flick through the Times of India, which again is another Modi another Modi mouthpiece, and it's again a typically one-sided report, but it does highlight how effective Pannoon is in provoking the Indian machinery. He does such a great job with this, and they've said that Gurdas Singh Pannoon designated a terrorist by India, which is again a laughable accusation. He's produced a video making threats against. Exactly, it's same old, same old. He's posted this video making threats against India's sovereignty once again, this time threatening to start independence movements in other states besides Punjab. Well, what Gurdas Maan did in his video, he titled it Mission of SFJ 2024, One India to 2047, None India. So he said that by 2047, India will no longer exist as a nation. And the Times reports it's in reaction to Canada Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs David Morrison saying, quote, Canada's policy is very clear that India's territorial integrity must be respected. There's one India, and that's been made very clear. So Pannoon's just come back and said, oh, that's what you think. Well, by 2047, that is not going to be the case. Because SFJ, as Pannoon reports, is holding, of course, the referendum that the Times refers to as an unofficial global referendum. I had to get that in there. threatens to fuel independence movements in, and here we go, J&K, Assam, Manipur and Nagaland, just like in Punjab, to what Gurdas says it to balkanise the Union of India. And he addresses Chinese President Xi Jinping saying, now is the time to order the Chinese army to take Arunachal Pradesh back. And then, as the Times say, falsely claiming that Arunachal Pradesh is the territory of China. And it continues, SFJ will continue to use the protection and support of Canadian and American laws to continue to campaign for independence movements, to balkanise and disintegrate the Union of India. Panoon threatens in front of a poster with the words 2047 none India. And he says by 2047 the current borders and boundaries of the Union of India will be redrawn and wiped out from the world map. And as the Times says, the video ends with lightning. It's just, I do laugh because Gurdas Singh Panoon, he is this wonderful firebrand. He is so passionate about the cause. He, of course, is behind this wonderful referendum being rolled out across the diaspora. He is really sticking his head above the parapet. It is no wonder that the RSS and RAW are so desperate to take him out as they've tried, because he is having such a huge impact. And again, another story that came out, and again, this is reported by the Times of India. He apparently, according to the Times of India, threatened the Canadian MP and an Indian diplomat. And it says in their report that he's threatened Chandra Araya. Yes, once again, James, this demon of the Sikh diaspora in Canada, this gentleman, essentially another RSS puppet, who's doing his damnedest to push the RSS agenda across Canada. And Panoon's come out and made some pretty forceful comments about Chandra Araya. And as the Times basically have taken him slightly out of context and saying he's threatening him. Actually, all he said was, let's all wait for the final fate of MP Araya. And this is a typical Indian spin, because in fact, Gurdas Singh Panoon recently called for the boycott of Air India after various issues. And that was spun by many India media outlets, news outlets, as saying that he was calling for bomb threats. He was calling for bombings of Air India, which is complete and utter nonsense. They spun it in typical disinformation methods. They're typical methods of spinning any quote from Gurdas Singh Panoon into something that it was not. He basically called for a boycott of Air India, which they spun into saying that he was trying to say that they should bomb Air India, which is complete nonsense. So, James, I say, as always, I take my hat off to Gurdas Singh Panoon. He literally risks his life on a daily basis to stand up and shout out loud with sheer fire roaring from his mouth. This Sikh fire, this inferno of passion that he broadcasts on a regular basis. His videos are always worth a watch. He does not hold back. He's there pointing his finger, and he really is this firebrand for the Khalistan cause.
He is, and sometimes I think that's what gives easy ammunition or misunderstanding by some about him, because he does speak his mind, and he's got a passion that's just roaring to go. But again, it makes it easy, unfortunately, at times for the opposition, being, of course, the RSS and, the media machine that is India, to really target him and misinterpret and misrepresent what he's saying. And again, he's calling on a vote or an investigation into treason of this member of parliament and this politician. And when he says, about, we'll see what happens in the end, or whatever the wording was that you covered, he's referring to how the investigation plays out. But of course, the Indian media turns it into this threat. And it's not the first time that's happened. It won't be the last time. But yeah, God bless that man, because he just lets it go. And no, he's great. And I had a chance to interview him once. I was having some audio issues, so I didn't want to have it come out bad. So I said, no, I'm not going to waste your time today. But I hope he never did take that as an insult or anything. I would have loved to have actually had a conversation with him, but it just didn't work out at that timing because it was unscheduled. So.
Yeah, so well done to Gurdas Singh Panoon. He really is a thorn, a very painful, sharp thorn in the side of the RSS. So full marks to him.
And if you look at a map, when I was a kid, it had USSR on the maps where Russia is and Russia Federation. So, you know, to have the word India removed from a map doesn't mean he's going to remove all the people in the country. It's, you know, just the name and what the political sphere is. So. Yeah.
Indeed. And he's setting out this narrative, which is becoming mainstream now. This breakup, this balkanisation of India, it is becoming mainstream narrative. More and more people are now talking about it. And even though we laugh and joke saying he is a bit of a firebrand, he's having a big impact. His referendum is having a monumental impact across the world. It's so high profile now that the mainstream media are talking about it. And again, his video talking about the balkanisation of India, again, law of unintended consequences, because the Indian media have picked up on this and they're saying, oh, look what this guy's up to. All they're doing is actually spreading that same message. There's no such thing as bad publicity, as they say, James. And that message about the balkanisation.
He's sly like a fox, that man. He's very smart and very, I think that everything is very well planned on his side, that he knows what he's doing. And I give him full credit for that, because he is getting the attention on the topic and on the discussion, or inviting the discussion. So it's great.
Yeah, he's playing the game and he's playing it extremely well indeed. So well done to him. Right, let's move on to Gurdas Maan. And again, another story that I wanted to report on about 2 days ago, but with the agenda being so busy with the other Canadian story, this one got shunted out to today. But I had to report on it because, of course, we had our very own team, Surinder Singh from Satellite TV, was out there protesting in Bakersfield, California, very vocally. Now, Gurdas Maan, as we reported on the other day, he's doing this tour of the US, and he had a tour planned of Canada last year, which was cancelled for, well, official reasons were very different from the truth. Basically, the Sikh community were up in arms, making sure that everybody knew what Gurdas Maan stood for, and it was not a very positive thing. And so, of course, he had to cancel. He's cancelled his shows, and he's got this tour planned in the US, and the Sikh community are out in force and have been out in force in a big way. Now, the big team that were out in Bakersfield over the weekend, I think it was Saturday and Sunday, they were out there protesting. A good turnout, lots of positive things came from that. But unfortunately, there was quite a nasty incident, because clearly the RSS became aware of the Sikh community being out in force, and they attacked the team that were out there. And I do actually have a video which I'll just quickly show you now.
सो इस करके आपां नूं कोई इस तरह की कोई दिक्कत नहीं विचार करते हैं, पर उहदे विच कुछ कानूनी कारण हुंदे आ। उहदे विच यह है कि आपां पब्लिक नूं डिस्टर्ब नहीं कर सकते। सो रास्ते नूं आपां जरूर क्लीयर रखना। कोई गड्डी आउंदी जांदी है, किसी दे सट फेट ना लग जावे, ध्यान रखियो। चलो, विचार चल रही सीगी जी। वीर सुरिंदर सिंह उन्हां ने लंबा समा पत्रकारी की दुनिया दे विच सच बोलदे आ, जेलां भी चलियां, वो बड़े सुंदर विचार तुहाडे नाल सांझे कर चुके हैं। आप देख रहे हो इत्थे तकरीबन कैलीफोर्निया, फ्रिजनो, बेकरफील्ड, टलेरी, होर कई जगह तो सिंह पहुंच चुके ने, कई जथेबंदियां दे सिंह भी पहुंच चुके ने। आपां सारियां दे विचार सुनने आ। अज जिहड़े विषय ते आपां इत्थे इकट्ठे होए आ, करियो कवर करियो जी, वीडियो च कवर करियो, रिकॉर्ड करियो। कोई गल नहीं। आ तुसीं देख लिया, ये पुलिस नहीं सी।
Pretty nasty. Now, several people were actually quite badly hurt in that incident. It didn't look much from the camera angle, but basically that was an unmarked pickup truck, a black pickup truck whose plates had been removed. They slowed as they passed this protest, and a load of them just sprayed these high-powered pepper spray, sprayed a huge cloud of pepper spray into the crowd here. And our very own Surinder Singh was affected by this, and the police, of course, were involved. They very quickly got involved in this, and they're taking it very seriously, fortunately. ambulances arrived and did want to take away those who were injured by this. And Surinder was quite badly affected by this, but he refused as the reports came in internally. He was so full of chadi kala, as the report went, that he refused. He wanted to carry on with the protest, which he did. So very manfully, very passionately carried on with the protest. And again, I'll just play you a little bit more of what happened later on in the protest. I'll just play a quick minute of the chanting. So a great turnout, very passionate singing gay on there. It's great to report on that. So well done to everybody who turned out in Bakersfield. Again, I think you get a flavour of what the RSS are up to. They hate protests like this. And yeah, a simple pepper spray attack, I think, again, speaks volumes to the public about who is in the right and who's in the moral wrong here, James.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, wherever I go, people ask me about Surinder because he's got a very big reputation and popularity. Whether I'm in Calgary or Edmonton or Vancouver, everybody loves him. And I'm just glad that everybody's okay there and that it didn't derail the purpose of everyone being there by injuries that were more serious. So I'm glad to see everybody was okay, Angus.
Indeed. And of course, I have to finally report that there was a 95-year-old community warrior father, Surata Singh Ji Khalsa, who was in attendance. Now, he's also known as Bapu Surat Singh Khalsa. He's a civil rights and political activist from the Indian state of Punjab, and he's been involved with a lot of political struggles related, of course, to the cause. And he started a hunger strike in January 2015, which apparently is still going on. But he still managed to attend that protest. So well done to that community warrior for attending that protest as well. Okay, I'm just going to quickly show a trailer. Now, I've got a podcast planned for early next week. We reported last week on the Sikh Youth UK story, and the founder of Sikh Youth UK, Deepa Singh. I'm going to be interviewing Deepa next week, all being well. He's been the subject, he's been very much at the sharp end here in the UK of Sikh activism and Khalistan activism. And as a result, he's been heavily targeted by the British state and the counter-terrorism units, particularly the West Midlands Police. He's really suffered for his cause, and I'm going to interview him on probably Tuesday or Wednesday next week. And he's going to give a really in-depth and insight into his life, what he's suffered, the intimidation and harassment he's suffered. And of course, we did report last week on how he's been targeted again by the British state in collusion with the British media to arrest him for this alleged fraud that they call it. They call it fraud under the Charity Commission. And again, there's a much deeper story at play here. And again, it does seem like on the face of it, and certainly according to his legal counsel, a bit of what we call a stitch-up going on there. So I just want to quickly play a trailer. We don't often have trailers on our show, James. Let me just quickly play this for you.
Not often we get the privilege.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Make sure you check out our exclusive interview on Satluj TV. where we'll be highlighting the ongoing issues of Sikh activists across the globe being targeted, the political witch hunts, and the India-UK collusion. It'll be a very interesting conversation. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you tune in.
Indeed. So thanks, Deepa. I look forward to talking to Deepa next week. So do keep an eye out for that podcast. I think it's going to be a fascinating insight to what really goes on the ground here in the UK as an activist. Right, James, we must rush on to our comments section as, we're up against the clock as always. So, as always, a big thank you to everybody who's commented. We've had loads of lovely comments. As always, loads of very supportive comments.
Keep them coming.
Indeed, and and of course with what's been bubbling over the last 24, 48 hours, the comments have been pouring in, and particularly in thanks to Justin Trudeau and his administration there. And as that news was breaking, I have to say thank you to the gym in Germany. I don't know if you're actually in Germany, but the gym Germany, thank you for your comment, who said India has cancelled all diplomatic relations with Canada. Yeah, you were straight in there as soon as that news broke. Thank you for that. Of course, subsequently a lot's happened since then, but I did want to highlight this, that thank you for that. And of course, to all our audience, if big news breaks that you think we might miss, do get it on the comments. Just put it in there, because we do monitor these comments regularly all the time. So it can quite often be the first time that we hear of a story if somebody jumps in on the comment and saying, have you seen such and such? So please do that. So I wanted to put this comment just for that very reason. Now, the Ratan Tata story rumbles on. I wanted to put this comment out because this was interesting. I didn't know this. S. Baines said, don't listen to the critics, they're just bitter. After 1984, the genocide, Tata provided trucks to Sikh drivers who had their trucks burnt, which is why so many Sikh drivers were loyal to Tata. I didn't know that. There's a little comment that no, that's not in the mainstream media, James. I think that is an interesting insight into the man himself.
That's right. And, it's great to learn these different things because, as you said, we had no idea.
Yeah, so thank you for that comment. Thank you for bringing that to everybody's attention. Again, when people criticise, and again, I find it very hard. In fact, I haven't actually found any bad words about Tata apart from that one critic the other day. Everybody else has poured in with actually very supportive comments about his philanthropy. So thank you for pointing that one out. Jasvinder says, refer to Operation Shanti. This was a shocking operation that was planned that I referred to in our podcast the other day. I know all about Operation Shanti, the only government on this planet that wants to erase the Sikh warriors who fought to free India. And of course, you're referring here to this great betrayal. The Sikhs were at the vanguard. They were at the forefront in that battle for Indian independence. Yes, the Indian independence that the Brahmins benefited primarily from. It was the Sikh warriors, essentially, who stood up there and fought at the forefront. They were in that vanguard. They were taking the brunt of British ire. And they were there fighting for Indian independence and have been there actually since the 19th century, fighting on behalf of the subcontinent against the British. And what did the Brahmins do? They turned around and betrayed them. They didn't just betray them, they massacred them in their hundreds of thousands, if not their millions. So yeah, Jasvinder, you're absolutely right. Killing millions of Sikhs after that so-called independence is a shameless act of a coward and thankless India. I couldn't have put it better myself, James.
Yeah, and what people need to understand is that we're not talking about Sikh warriors. We're talking they murdered children, women, seniors. They were not selective at all. They just killed any Sikhs that they could get, and that was it. There was no differentiation on age or anything like that.
Yeah, and Manveer comes in with a very sensible point, I would say. To point out, it's not the individuals born into the Brahmin caste that there's an issue with. It's the Brahmanistic ideology, and those who follow it are the problem. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right here. It's the ideology that's the issue. Of course, not all Brahmins are bad. Not all Brahmins are evil. They just happen to. It's by nature of birth they happen to be born a Brahmin. I'm sure they're not complaining about it. But ultimately, it's the ideology, and you're absolutely bang on with this. I think you're right. This is a very sensible comment. It's the ideology that needs to be driven out. It's the ideology that is the enemy of the Sikh people, and unfortunately, it's the people, the tools of the ideology who are the enemy. It is the Brahmins who then act upon this ideology. So yeah, thank you for that comment. I think very sensible comment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's well said. Very important point.
Now, Punjab is not India. I think everything is in the name there. Punjab is not India says, one thing Canada and America should understand is that no one is your bigger enemy than India. If India is strong, then India will be the biggest threat to America and Canada. This is interesting. Yeah, at the moment, all eyes really are on China as a potential enemy. But what if, we do talk about this a lot, James, what if India, it is at that nexus point in its future. It is almost a decision point. Does it follow the Chinese, the Soviet style of totalitarian rule, which at the moment it is on the path to, or does it follow a Western style of democracy? It is at that juncture of its potential future. Which path is it going to follow? Is it totalitarianism and fascism, which at the moment, sadly, it does seem to be on the path of, or does it turn back towards democracy? If it does go towards totalitarianism, yes, Punjab is not India in 1984. You could be right. It could be the next big enemy, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And there's an old theory by a psychologist, and he said that adolescence is the second individuation process for youth and developing for your adult life. And I think that's the precipice that we see India at. They are looking at their new identity and what they want to partake in terms of their future and their identity and their values. I think that they are at that crossroads, and we'll have to hope they move on the right direction.
Again, referring to a point I made earlier in the show, James, I think Narendra Modi is just a damn nuisance for global geopolitics at the moment. I think the West, certainly the Five Eyes nations, are cursing the existence of Narendra Modi and the RSS because actually they are causing global instability by their actions. So. Yeah. Which actually then reads on to S. Baines's comment, the House of Cards is collapsing. I think you're absolutely right. I think this House of Cards is collapsing. I think, the Indian media is in overdrive, blaming and demonising Trudeau. But as we've reported earlier in the show, I think the fact is that the West are now waking up to what Modi and the RSS are up to and what is going on. And I think the momentum is shifting. I think the narrative is shifting. I think this narrative that's been pushed out by the Indian media, I think it's being seen for what it is. I think it's losing credibility. I think they've just gone just a few steps too far now. And I think the West is waking up, the Western populations, I think that's what matters. The people of the West are waking up to what India actually represents. And as a result, I think that House of Cards is collapsing, James.
And again, we're looking at the political structure and certain politicians, not the India people as a whole. And I think that it's important just every once in a while for us to remind our viewers of that differentiation. So.
Yeah, Sam Singh says 300,000 or claims 300,000 Sikh men, women and children have been killed since 1970. I wonder, it's probably an awful lot more than that. That may be just the ones that have been documented. I don't know what the true figure is. And sadly, probably we'll never know the true figure. Because, of course, that covers the extrajudicial killings of the 1980s and 1990s, of which people have tried at their literal cost. They sacrificed their lives to document and evidence that. But, of course, one wonders how many have been murdered since 1947. I think the number, literally numbers in the millions. It's horrific. So sadly, the truth will never come out. We'll never know how many Sikhs have been murdered by the Indian state. Amrit Singh says, now is the time for UK to be on the same page as Canada and USA. Oh, how many times have I said this? Yeah, I agree. But why is it not? Is the question I raise in almost every show. Why is the UK not on the same page as Canada and the USA? I've got my own theories, and I do come out with it regularly, James. I think the historic relationship between India and the British establishment, I think it runs deep, and I think they've got their own agenda. We talked already about the trade deals. I think the trade deals come on there. Oh, it's a very complex issue, James.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, and I saw that comment earlier and I thought, oh, that's like a love note to Angus.
And the final page of comments, it's a little bit of a self-indulgence. So we've had lots of lovely comments. And I just wanted to put these in, just again, as a big thank you to all those who have put loads of very supportive comments. Amrik says it's a breath of fresh air to see the programme and always looks forward to seeing us. And Deep Singh says that we bring great news for the Sikhs worldwide, and a huge appreciation for both of you. Thank you for those. And we're doing our best, James and I, and we do appreciate the positive comments that come back. And Manveer says that we're doing a sterling job, and Manveer says that we found a nice balance between the serious and somewhat light-hearted and mundane to discuss, all presented in a clear and accessible manner. Keep up the good work. Take care and be safe. Yeah, well, the same to our audience as well. Do take care and do be safe. We do know that a lot of members of our audience, a lot of podcast guests that I talk to, their lives literally are under threat. They've received threat to life warnings from their intelligence services and their law enforcement agencies because everybody who is pro-Khalistan, even in the diaspora across the West, they are literally risking their lives against a totalitarian state who is not afraid to send out their agents, who are not afraid to use their proxies, the criminal gangs, to literally kill them, as we've seen, and the martyrs that have given up their lives across the world for the Khalistan cause, James. I think it's only a small thing that you and I do, but I think compared to what many of the activists out there are doing, they are literally sticking their heads above the parapet, like Gurdas Maan, like sadly Hardeep Singh Nijjar was doing. These guys are out there on the front line doing it, and well done to them.
Absolutely, and thank you to all the viewers as well for allowing us to be a part of your day and for taking the time to share with us. We really do appreciate it, and we are here to share the news, to share what's important, the culture, the history. But again, as Angus said earlier, if you have something that you'd like us to cover, by all means reach out to us because we are only as good as the content we bring you. So please let us know if there's something that we're not covering that you would love to see.
Indeed, absolutely. And as I say, it's the people that we actually all should be thanking are those activists who are out there on the streets getting their voices heard, who are out there actively on social media and the mainstream media getting the pro-Khalistan message out, who are doing sterling work. As I said, that momentum is now shifting towards Khalistan, so let's keep that momentum up. And everybody in our audience has a stake to play in that, so well done and thank you to each and every one of you. Yeah. But unfortunately, we must wrap things up there for Perspectives for another day. Please don't forget to keep those comments coming in. As I have said before, and James has said, we do appreciate every single one that is printed out there under our videos, so thank you for those. Don't forget, of course, you can message us directly, as many of you have done, at message@satlogetv.com if there's anything that you'd like to bring to our attention or anything that you just don't want to put in the public domain, so do keep those coming in as well. But in the meantime, we must wrap things up for another day. Thank you so much for watching Perspectives. It is a goodbye from me, and it is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you next time.